Okay, we're on Unit 4 now with avoiding sentence fragments. So we've talked a lot about the different types of sentence structures, and we've talked about fragments somewhat, but we always want to make sure in our writing that we are error-free of fragments. So a sentence fragment is a group of words that is not a complete sentence. And we talked about how sometimes writers will intentionally use fragments in a piece of literature, so you probably see it quite a bit, and especially if you are reading anything online, you'll see sentence fragments. Most of our tweets and different status updates and things that you write on Snapchat, those are typically sentence fragments. But in formal compositions, which is what we're practicing in this class, we want to avoid unintentional sentence fragments. So there's some common causes that we'll go over. First, you could be missing a subject or a verb in your sentence fragment. So here we have the guard near the entrance. We're like, great, he's a guard. What's he doing? We don't know. There's no verb. We'd have to say the guard is standing, the guard slept. What was his action doing? Then we have here where we have a verb, but we have no subject. Changed into new clothes. Well, who changed into new clothes? Was it the guard? Was it you? We don't know. So we have to make sure that we have both a subject and a verb in our sentence in order for it to be complete. Then we have what we discussed before is a dependent clause left alone will also create a sentence fragment. So we have, because I really enjoyed football, you're like waiting for the other half. You don't know what happened. So you have to add a second complete sentence in order for that to be complete. Because I really enjoyed football, comma, I'm going to purchase Lions season tickets. You can tell these people obviously are from Michigan because we have all these Michigan references. All right, third rule is a phrase left alone. So those phrases, we've talked a little bit about the ing verbs, but let's see what else it can be. We can say, stranded in the middle of a darkening forest, period. Laura desperately searched for civilization. That's a beautiful description. We'd love to have that, especially in a narration. However, this stranded in the middle of a darkening forest cannot stand alone. We have no subject. So instead of trying to rework it or anything like that, all you need to do is add the comma, because then we know that Laura is stranded in the middle of the darkening forest and Laura searched for civilization. So now you add a subject by simply adding a comma instead of a period. Again, we have that with the description here, with hoping that his mother would soon arrive. Instead of just saying that, we would add that onto our sentence following. Steve fiddled and paced impatiently. We would say, hoping that his mother would soon arrive, comma, Steve fiddled and paced impatiently. Then we have Mark slipped away, leaving his empty cereal bowl on the table. Notice that here, all we did was add it to the front, but that's not the only way you can add those. Here we have Mark slipped away, leaving his empty cereal bowl on the table. Instead of having this ing phrase at the beginning, we can also tag it on the end, your choice as an author. So Mark slipped away, comma, leaving his empty cereal bowl on the table. And we can put that in the front, leaving his empty cereal bowl on the table, comma, Mark slipped away. Either one is correct. Again, we want that sentence variety so that your writing has that rhythm and is more interesting to read. Fourth thing we want to look for is to generally try to avoid beginning a sentence with and, which, but, or such as, unless you're knowingly doing so with a purpose. Be careful because words like but and are oftentimes used as transition words, but they're really not transition words. They are really coordinating conjunctions, which we'll talk about. They connect two sentences together, but they're not a transition word like however or nonetheless or moreover. Those are transition words, and we'll look at a list of those too. So here we have a fragment. Steve graciously stopped and waited for Leanne, which impressed her mother greatly. This I see from students all the time. Remember the rule, we don't start a sentence with which. So instead, all you have to do is correct it with a comma before it. Connect it to that first part of your sentence. Many problems infest our city, such as crime, a crumbling infrastructure, home foreclosures, and poor public services. I see this quite a bit when students are writing their thesis statement. I know it seems awkward. I know it feels like it's not correct, but you need a comma here and then the comma here. So such as crime, a crumbling infrastructure. I know it seems like you have too many commas in a sentence, but don't worry about that. That is actually the correct punctuation. So those are the 4 rules you need to know about sentence fragments: missing a subject or a verb, a dependent clause left alone, a phrase left alone, or beginning a sentence generally with and, which, but, or such as. So I don't have any practices to do with you here. But here you're going to draw a line and connect the examples here, and these are all examples you've seen before, to the causes. Actually, let's do this one together. So shifted into higher gear. Who shifted? We don't know. I don't have a subject. So I would connect it to missing a subject. Then many problems infest our city, such as crime. We just saw that in the example. So this is generally starting a sentence. So I would just draw lines to these. I can't draw lines here. Stranded in the middle of a darkening forest. We would want to add a comma here. Right now it's just a phrase. And then because I enjoy football, that has that word because, which makes it a dependent clause. So we're just matching these here. Go ahead and through here you're going to fix the sentence fragments. Most of the time you're just going to be turning those periods into commas as we did in the examples. You'll be writing your own sentences. This is a type of sentence that I find really important to fluidity of writing, so make sure you practice that. And let me just point one thing out to you here. Joe turned to his boss, a mousy looking woman with a scowl etched into her face, and asked her if he could leave early. When you have a description, if I'm describing, whatever I'm describing needs to come directly before it. So here I have his boss and it describes it. If I was describing Joe, I would move this whole section right after Joe. Whatever you're describing, the descriptor needs to go right next to the noun typically that you are describing. Okay, if you don't, you have something called a dangling modifier, and we don't want our dangling modifiers to show. It's ugly. And then go ahead and pick the best one. So go through, work on fragments. Of course, this is especially important to make sure that your writing is error-free.